In brightest day, in blackest night, all other podcasts tremble in fright. Losers cower before the power. Orange is lust and blues you can trust. Indigos feel and white ones heal. Yellow scare and green ones dare. That sapphire love and black hands glove will rock your foundation without hesitation. Chad and Mark face evil's might. Respect their power, for they'll make you see the light.
Hi, everybody. I'm Chad Bokelman.
I'm Mark Marble.
And this is the LanternCast.
Episode 322. Again.
Again. For those of you playing along at home, this is the second time Mark and I have recorded this particular episode.
Which is even more painful now. When you hear, I hope you'll appreciate this now that we had to do this twice, and we actually had a really fun, in quotes at least, as fun as possible time going through it the first time, and now having to go back and retrace our steps. That's never fun.
Yeah, no matter how good the comic is, it's never good as the first time when you're trying to spontaneously find things to talk about and joke about. So trying to rehash your own jokes and commentary is never fun. But regardless, we're going to do the best we can, because this month and this episode, we are collaborating in the JLMay crossover event with all these other podcasts, which, stay tuned for the end of the episode. I will give you the names of those podcasts and what issues they'll be covering. But what we're covering this year, with our first time out, we covered JLA Year 1, as is befitting. Our second time out, we covered the Justice event. This time around, we are covering the year 2000 DC Comics event Silver Age. We are obviously taking the Green Lantern one-shot issue of that, and going to go ahead and go over that here. And again, like I said, stay tuned to the end of the episode, and I'll give you a list of where to find the people who covered the beginning of this arc, issues that came before us, and where to find the next few installments. Now, this year, just as a heads up, this is a little bit more loosey-goosey of a crossover, not in terms of quality or anything like that, but just in terms of our release schedules. Things aren't releasing in ramshackle 100% corresponding order, but you'll be able to find the entire event and listen to all the coverage. And hey, if you haven't and you're just listening to this episode, no worries, because there's a recap page on the front of this that we're going to read.
That is probably the best thing about having this issue to do, is that even if you had followed this story arc when it first came out, or if you hadn't and you didn't, maybe because didn't have enough time, or you just didn't realize going in, I'm kind of like, I probably should have a little bit more background on where this event began to get me to this point. You're all covered, because thanks to Hal's little narration to himself and everything else, you get everything you need to know about Silver Age up to this point, and like the first 2 pages of this book. We love you, Hal.
So speaking of, before we get into it, have you read this before, Mark?
Yes.
What did you think at the time when you were reading this stuff?
It was okay.
On to the issue, folks.
Yes.
Come on, man. You can't give me more content than that.
I like this issue. This is the issue that I remember. I remember the cover, and I like the way they write the cost. Try to make it seem like it's in cents, because the way they write it out instead of saying $2 and whatever it is. I remember that, and I remember the whole premise of the event. But if you're asking me what is memorable about the event for the most part, other than this, no, I don't really remember it all that much.
Gotcha. Well, you're going to remember this issue, because we're about to recap it.
Again. That's why we'll remember it.
Here it is. An all-new tale from the Silver Age. Green Lantern, fight, Green Lantern, fight. If you can't save the planet Thanagar from Sinestro, the universe is doomed. It says right so on the cover. This issue is scripted by Kurt Busiek. Busiek? Whatever. I hear people on different podcasts pronounce his name differently, and I feel like it can really be. I think you know who the hell we're talking about.
It's like Avon Race, Heis, Hoos. What do you?
Pencils by Brent E. Anderson. Inks by Joe Rubenstein. Colors by James Sinclair. Jameson is the separator. Jack Morelli, letterers. Tony Bedard, assistant editor. And Dan Raspler, editor. So, as we said, the first 2 pages of this have a bit of a recap about what's been going on. So if you're new to this, I'm just going to read these 2 pages out loud and then go into a more simplistic breakdown of the rest of the issue. But to catch you up, Sinestro, the renegade Green Lantern, brutally. What the hell's wrong with me?
Take 2.
I'm done. Yeah.
Actually, I guess it'd be take 3 technically.
Yeah, I'm not editing any of this out, guys. Just because
that's gonna make
any mistakes and jokes are just going to add more time and content to this episode. So let's just enjoy it as is.
That's gonna make up for it, at least on our end, for having to start over from scratch.
Hey, listen to how bad these people suck at recapping comics. That's entertaining, at least, isn't it?
Way to go, there, Chad, my boy.
All right. Sinestro, the renegade Green Lantern, brutally beating the Justice League of America? How could this be? And more, how could the fate of the entire universe rest on the Mimir of Evil conquering not only the JLA, but himself? You'll find all the answers in this sensational 3-part novel that follows, as Green Lantern finds himself in some very unusual straits and has to stand alone against injustice. So Chapter 1, entitled The Last Stand on Thanagar. Our 3-part tale begins in deep space, as we find the sleek figure of Sinestro desperately dodging a meteor shower. But within that form lurks another's mind, the mind of Hal, Green Lantern, Jordan. And then Hal, in the body of Sinestro, is thinking to himself, it's so hard to believe all that's happened. Agamemnon, a powerful, ancient, shape-shifting being, convinced he's the rightful ruler of all reality, came to Earth in the form of a meteor and gathered together an Injustice League, 9 of the greatest threats the world has ever known. Lex Luthor, the Penguin, Catwoman, Mr. Element, Black Manta, Dr. Light, Sinestro, Kronos, and Felix Faust. As this first step in a cosmic plan, he needed heroes, but for a villainous purpose. So the villains swapped bodies with the Justice League and set off in search of 3 artifacts of power which he plans on combining into one cosmic weapon that'll allow him to conquer the universe and set up the Injustice League as his satraps. I stumbled over that word last time we did this, but I don't know what that is. Anyways, already, according to Sinestro's power ring, they've captured the central power battery from Oa and a jewel from the planet Krypton. And now they're headed for Thanagar for the 3rd and final artifact. I've got to get there before they reach it and stop them, or the universe is doomed. Did you figure out what that means?
Yeah, I sent it to you, but I'll read it. It's jeez, if I can get to the right friggin' window. Basically any subordinate or local ruler. But
Gotcha.
I guess it originally comes from originally it was a provincial governor in the Persian Empire. So.
Gotcha. So it sounds like this is going to be a weird pull, but you remember the animated movie Justice League Crisis on Two Earths or whatever?
Vaguely, but yes, I do remember it.
Yeah, the members of the crime syndicate had like second in command bosses with different families underneath them.
Crime families, almost like.
Yeah, that's what that sounds like. All right, so over on Thanagar, let me try and figure this out. Should I call him Hal or Sinestro?
Call him
Just
Hal.
so we. Okay, call him
especially
Hal.
Since,
All right.
Especially since Hal, although Sinestro in Hal's body doesn't really show up, right? Or does he?
Sinestro and Hal's body doesn't show up.
Yeah.
Okay, at some point in this comic, spoilers for this episode you're already listening to, but at some point in this comic, they're going to switch back. So after I say they switch back, know that when I say Hal, I mean Hal in Hal's body. But until the switch, when I say Hal, I mean Hal in Sinestro's body. Okay? All right, now we're all caught up. Now, over on Thanagar, the Injustice League, again, in the minds of the Injustice League, in the body of the hero, in the body of the Justice League, arrive on Thanagar in a green construct bubble with the central power battery and the Krypton jewel. Okay? They show up. They approach the High Moor of Thanagar and say that they need the Absorbicron, and they introduce their new member. This is Agamemnon, our latest recruit. I would gladly fill you in on his daring exploits, but I'm afraid there's no time. We're here on a serious matter. We must borrow your planet's greatest achievement, the Absorbicron. Or Absorbicon. Sorry, there's no R there. The High Moor says this is most unusual. The Absorbicon is closely guarded secret. With it, the entirety of a planet's knowledge can be absorbed. Are you certain it's needed? Says yes, and they gladly accede to this because this is the Justice League and their feats are known far and wide throughout the universe, at least in the Silver Age. So, while they go off to find this, the Injustice League is kind of snickering to themselves. Then Hal shows up, again, body of Sinestro, shows up to take on the Injustice League. Now, because the Injustice League is inhabiting the bodies of the Justice League, they are not yet familiar enough with the powers of the bodies they occupy to be 100% proficient at using them. So, this gives Hal an edge in using Sinestro's power ring to take them on. So he gets the better of them for a little while. And then Agamemnon decides to join the fight. Okay? This is when he gets kind of throws Hal off base. The Injustice League kind of find their footing, and Hal throws them all off and kind of notices that his urge isn't just to beat them. He really doesn't necessarily want to kill them, but he just wants to be ultra violent with them. So he flies up into the atmosphere to get away for a moment to talk to the ring. And he says, there's some sort of outside force affecting me, affecting my mind. Can you find out what it is? The ring responds, I already know what it is. I am affecting you. Green Lantern rings are made with a necessary impurity that prevents them from affecting anything yellow, as you know. If not for this impurity, unchecked exposure to the ring would overwhelm the wearer, drive him power mad. I, of course, have no such impurity. For my normal wearer, Sinestro, this is not a concern. His mental profile is already too warped to affect. But yours is a healthy mind, a vulnerable mind. You cannot wear me for much longer without being rendered permanently, irrevocably insane. So, Chapter 2 starts with Where There's a Will. That's the name of the title, by the way. The Injustice League flies up and catches up with Hal in the upper atmosphere. The Thanagarian police force joins the fray. And as Hal is thinking to himself that he can't resist much longer, I need to, I won't last much longer. I'll never get to see anybody. I'll become a monster menace, a threat to Carol and to Pi, never to see them again or hear their voices. And then he remembers Coast City just a few weeks ago. In a random flashback, I promise you, has barely anything to do with anything. But we'll get there.
See Jon Stewart in Lost Army. No.
So Hal is taking Carol in this flashback to a launch of an activation of a satellite. She's expecting Green Lantern, but, Hal's there, so this is the Silver Age. We have to have that classic, I want her to love me for me, but she only has eyes for Green Lantern kind of stuff. Anyways, the reason they're launching this satellite, rather, is to make a more, to date, the most accurate map/globe that's ever been created. They're just going to scan the Earth, 100%. Well, all that in mind, the reason Green Lantern's expected is rather than switching on this satellite automatically, which they can do, it has the capability, they're going to make a show of things and have Green Lantern fly into space and turn it on for them. Which is kind of crazy because all they're going to see is Green Lantern flying up into space. So why do you have to have him turn it on? Just say, hey, can you fly just straight up in the air and then stay out there for a little bit? We'll hit the switch on our end and we're good. But whatever. Hal comes up with a convenient excuse because Pi has shown up and made up an excuse for him to dart away. And while he does, Green Lantern shows up. Oh no, how is it possible? But when he gets up into the atmosphere, he notices that the satellite is already rocketing towards the surface. Why? Because sonar is somehow up in the stratosphere, which we didn't talk about last time. But now that I see it, what the hell and how the hell is sonar up there? But Here we go. Sonar is up there, and he's knocking it out of orbit because he is from the country of Medora. And his whole thing is he always wants to put Medora on the map. Well, the satellite is literally creating a map. Medora is too small to bother being included on said map, so he's going to get revenge on the map makers. Silver Age.
They capture the essence.
Well, because this satellite is rocketing towards the planet through the stratosphere, it's hitting, re-entry, meaning it's burning up, meaning it's yellow. So Hal's attempts to catch it with a baseball glove, so on and so forth, don't work. He tries to slow it down with some construct fans. That doesn't really work. His next bet is to rock it down to the surface real quick and carve a massive baseball bat out of the ground so that future generations can come and marvel at the baseball-shaped canyon in front of them.
No pun intended there with the Marvel reference.
Exactly. So he carries this massive baseball bat made of solid rock that he just carved out of the ground from somewhere in the middle of nowhere. But they make a point to say it's an unoccupied valley, so at least nobody was hurt in the making of the space baseball bat.
Woodchucks.
to swat it out of the sky. But this is when all this work is for naught, as sonar hits him with a sound blast. So Hal drops the massive solid stone, 30-story baseball bat of solid rock he just made, and then creates some green construct bells to kind of mess with sonar. So he rockets ahead and he's like, wait a sec, I've been thinking about all this wrong. I got to tackle this problem. Well, never mind, we don't know what happened to the baseball bat. Could have crushed everyone below. We don't know. It would have made for a hell of a headline. Anyways, I've been thinking about this all wrong. I've got the power to phase through things, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go intangible directly in front of this falling satellite so that it just follows in my wake, and instead of hitting buildings in the ground, is just going through the intangibility that is right in front of me before it has a chance to become tangible once again. So he does this, flies all the way down to the Earth's core. That takes care of the satellite and then comes back out. Meanwhile, back on Thanagar, he realizes there's another way. Well, there's always another way, so he's going to try something else. So Chapter 3 assault on a battery, he flies into the power battery, says the oath, and then switches minds with not just himself, but also it switches everything back. So the Injustice League gets their bodies back, and the Justice League gets their minds back. However, instead of switching just the minds, which would be much easier, the bodies come to the minds. Meaning, the Injustice League is still in this situation, but with their own bodies, and the Justice League, utterly worthless at this point now back on Earth, have their minds back, which they're happy about.
Yep.
But I'm assuming they'll soon realize, well, we can't do anything right now. But anyways,
let's get a beer. No.
Hal, however, has his mind and his body back where they're supposed to be, so he goes to take on the Injustice League, but Sinestro. Dr. Light hits Hal with some yellow light, dazes him while the Injustice League flies away. The Thanagarian police force says they can't match the speed, so Hal tries to. Him and Sinestro essentially have the same top speed, so he's not really gaining any ground on them. But no worries, Hal has signaled the Green Lantern Corps. The Green Lantern Corps with... that's Katma, right?
Yep.
Katma, Tomar, that's Chaselon. There's Metaphil. I see a robot. That could be one of the versions of Stell from back then. If he's, looks like Starro. A couple of others are there to take on the Injustice League. So what Sinestro does is he sends all of the Injustice League out in little construct ships to take on the Green Lantern Corps, while Kronos and Lex stay behind. Lex says Sinestro uses ring to contact me just before the attack. I told him to leave you with me and the weapons. That brawl out there is nothing but a feint. The true battle will be won or lost here. And I need your watchmaker skill in addition to my engineering abilities. Now come, let's get to work. Sinestro takes on Hal. Hal gets the better of Sinestro by putting his hands around his throat. Ooh, foreshadowing. Until suddenly Hal lets go, is in a complete daze, and so is the rest of the attacking Green Lantern Corps. Lex comments, it was child's play in the final analysis. By feeding the Absorbicon's mental scan functions through the power battery, we were able to link all of the Green Lantern's minds and shut them down. Now back to the business at hand. We have all three devices we sought. Our opposition has been crushed. Victory is in our grasp, and nothing can stop us.
Famous last
and then
words.
That's right. Continued this week as Showcase presents the 7 Soldiers of Victory. What'd you think?
Much like the first time, I thought it was interesting. And to be fair, the Sinestro controlled Hal actually is in the issue but only for like 2 panels. Which is really, really odd and convenient that, of course, the one character, the same way Hal's able to take advantage of being in Sinestro's body, obviously Sinestro would be able to take advantage of being in Hal's body, especially since he was a former Green Lantern. But yet, they conveniently made sure he really is not in the book at all, other than like for 2 brief little cameos, so it's real convenient. I liked the fact that they took advantage of the fact that, again, a power ring's a power ring on some basic level, at least when it comes to yellow and green. That Hal's able to, he's able to take advantage of the fact that even though he's stuck in somebody else's body, considering whose body he's stuck in, it's not a great big learning curve for him to be able to use the yellow ring.
But it's nice that it does have an effect.
Yes, and it's kind of something that in a way carries forward. So that's cool. All they needed was Parallax to go inside Hal when he went to the battery. We've been great. And of course we need to find out who Sinestro's jeweler is to give him that earring. So Sinestro does not wear an earring normally, folks. Maybe if he's in a pirate phase, I don't know.
I'll tell you. I've said this about other issues in the past. I liked it for what it is. Now, guys, we're gonna rip into it. All right, so that's no problem. We're not going to comment on the issues that came before because the other podcasters covered those. So definitely get their perspective on all those. If you're listening to this episode first to see if you're interested in the event and then want to go back and listen to the other coverage, we don't want to spoil that for you. So we're not going to talk about that and tread on somebody else's toes. Same reason we're not covering the issues that come after it. Although there is a spoiler that I'm going to save for the end for us to discuss that's relevant to Green Lantern mythos. So we'll talk about that together at the end. But the reason I say I like this for what it is, these issues came out in the year 2000, but they're specifically written as Lost Silver Age stories. And they were specifically written to match the tone of said Silver Age. So we can give it hell for non-linear thinking, stupid dialogue, horrible jokes, whatever. But I'm going to say 9 times out of 10, those mistakes or errors or stupidity or cheesiness or whatever we could criticize it as is likely there intentionally. So you can't really go in expecting like a really original plot with like completely shocking twists and turns and just to be enraptured by this wholly original tale. It's meant to have a certain tone. That being said, I enjoyed it, but I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it because there are certain ways to do something like this. And we talked the first time we recorded this, but I'll bring it up here again. You can compare this to what DC did about, was it 5 or 6 years ago? The DC retroactive line.
Yep.
So both are done with the intent to elicit the tone and the continuity of the specific era they're trying to elicit. With the retroactive, they did 60s, 70s, 80s. Is that it?
No, they did 90s because they did Kyle.
Gotcha. Okay. So 70s, 80s, 90s.
Probably, yeah.
Okay. So, but those were done in era one-shots per the character. This is a huge crossover event that's meant to be a linear story. The retroactives were the one-shots in the era for the particular character, not meaning to cross over with each other, even within character or even within the or cross title, so or within the era. So like the 70s Flash retroactive and the 70s Green Lantern retroactive didn't cross over, but nor did the Green Lantern 70s, Green Lantern 80s, Green Lantern 90s. So right there you have 2 different ways to do this sort of thing, tell this sort of story, and make your money, make your give your chance to tell the story you want to tell, elicit the tone you want to elicit. But it's just a matter of just, the early 2000s, that's now 18 years ago. So, it's not necessarily a recent comic, but those two are relatively close together releases. So how do you feel this story captures that tone? Like, could this have been better done like the retroactive where it was just character one-shots? Because they did release it with the titles as one-shots.
Yeah, I don't know. I think for what this was and what they wanted it to be, I just think you have to take it for what it is. The retroactive was obviously something in a different vein, just like we also talked about something similar, which is another approach they could have taken was like Convergence, when they did the Convergence crossover and they had all the miniseries that were actually supposed to be these characters basically captured literally taken out of their respective time frames, so they were supposed to act and behave, and they were written as if those characters were not our modern version or interpretation of these characters or what we know about them now, but exactly the characters, who they were and how they were behaving at that time frame that they were plucked. That they could have done something like that too in a way, but I think it works. I think it does capture the kind of like the silliness or the simplicity of the Silver Age, but also kind of captures the what made the Silver Age special in a positive way. So I think they could have picked a better villain, a more memorable villain. That's always a problem with a lot. Well, not always, but that can be a problem with these things. If you pick a lame villain or a villain that doesn't have any relevance going forward or very little relevance going forward outside of this event, or a big event, then I think it always weakens it. Doesn't necessarily mean that the villain has to have been huge before the event, but going forward, what do you do with the villain afterwards? And obviously, we know what they've done with him, which is Sippo!
Yeah, and like I said, guys, there's a spoiler involved in what happens to him at the end of this. We'll discuss it at the end. And the most we can get out of discussing the villain will come at that point, Agamemnon. The only thing we can say here now that's not really a spoiler is in this issue, compared to the others, he's a relative non-entity.
Yep.
I mean, he serves to sort of get the Injustice League back on track in terms of defeating Hal and Sinestro's body, but, I mean, it's not like he, is like, oh, the Injustice League can't handle it, but my powers are innate. Boom, I've got it, So, yeah, I don't know. But yeah, he serves as a relative non-entity in this. So, and he was made for this story and doesn't show up again after this story. We'll say that as well. But yeah, how do you? Speaking of villains, how do you feel about the lineup we've got here in the story?
Well, the beauty is sometimes when our reactions get captured, sometimes. I would say most of the time, but even though we're having to redo this, I think our reactions were just natural both times, and that's the beauty of this. The greatest threats the world has ever known, and then you go from Lex Luthor to the Penguin and Catwoman
and Kronos.
Yeah, and some of these guys, even Black Manta, who we know he's tough, but I don't know if you consider him one of the greatest threats the world has ever known. It's debatable for him. But
what's interesting too is they chose to put he chose these villains to put into their minds into the bodies of the superheroes, because it says in the story he needed the heroes, but for a villainous purpose. So either A, why didn't he just mind control the Justice League? Or B, why did he choose these villains? Because if the thing that you're going with here is that you need villains in the bodies of heroes so that they are willing to accede to your purpose and whims, why wouldn't you choose the people either A, most familiar with their heroic counterpart, or the most brilliant or the most tactical minds there are, regardless of if they're familiar with their heroic counterpart?
Yeah, I got nothing, man.
Like put Deathstroke in the body of Batman. I mean, I don't think Deathstroke was invented yet, but in terms of Silver Age, so you couldn't do that. But you get what I mean there?
Yeah, but I do agree. I obviously they wanted a Batman villain to take over Batman, so I don't have an issue with that. Why it's the Penguin? That's another story. I mean, but look, some of these splits, like Felix Faust and friggin' Green Arrow.
Yeah.
What the hell do they have in common? I mean, that's
yeah.
So that's
was Merlin a thing by the 60s Silver Age Green Arrow stuff? I mean, because the whole opposite of the character was almost always their first villain.
Right, but even I would almost rather have seen Faust take over Martian Manhunter as opposed to Dr. Light doing it.
Yeah.
I just
What's a telepathic villain that would have been around in the 60s?
Oh, in the 60s.
Brainiac? Well, not telepathic. He's not Brainiac. Brainiac's not telepathic. Starro?
Yeah, I don't know. But I mean, some of these are naturals. Obviously, Hal, Sinestro, Aquaman, Manta, Lex, Superman. I mean,
Sinestro, Green Lantern, yeah.
And they kind of forced Black Canary and Catwoman because they're the only chick, so I guess they have to.
Well, and they're both physical fighters, though I would argue that Black Canary could take down Catwoman no problem. She's a legacy.
True.
Yeah.
But they could. This certainly is not exactly the A team here.
Yeah. And Kronos was, because at the end, Lex is a genius, an inventor, an engineer, but what the hell does he need Kronos' watchmaking skills for? Like, it makes no sense. Just give Lex the Absorbicon and the power battery. What the hell does Kronos have to offer Lex technician-wise?
Maybe he's building him a really special Rolex.
Just like, well, I need motivation to do this job. I need you to build me a nice custom watch so I have a present to look forward to, for completing this menial task here. It's just like, all right, whatever. One thing I pointed out last time, I want to point out this time as well, is this story opens with Hal and Sinestro's body flying through a meteor shower. However, they make a point of saying that this is in deep space. Meteor showers only happen when the meteors, or the asteroids, or whatever, are in an atmosphere and being pulled by gravity toward a planet's surface, or a moon's surface, or whatever. Because then they light on fire and streak in a downward trajectory, like we see them here, towards the surface. If he's in space, these should just be floating asteroids. Or if you want to, comment on his piloting abilities or something, they can just be a cluster of comets that he could be avoiding. But it's sort of odd they went with meteor shower. But again, when we were reading stuff in like Silver Age Tales, one of the first things that you immediately realize is the level of scientific understanding comic writers had when writing science fiction stories. So maybe they knew that was a mistake and just added it in because it matched the tone.
It's possible. That one you have to be a little more cynical about, I think. But it's possible.
Yeah.
Possible. Apparently, one man's asteroid field is another man's meteor shower.
I'm also curious about. I mean, again, I've read these issues, and I don't want to spoil anything, but I'm still sort of questioning at the very least, the jewel kryptonite.
Oh, the jewel from the planet Krypton, yes.
Yeah, the jewel from the planet Krypton.
That doesn't seem like it would be inherently super powerful.
Yeah.
You might not be able to destroy it. Maybe just plant a throne at people and knocking them out.
And I'll be 100% honest. The only time I've ever heard of and or seen the Absorbicon used was during the Justice League animated series. You know what I'm talking about?
I know.
Where Hawkman finally enters the picture and tries to get Shayera to remember who she is and get her to touch the Absorbicon.
Yeah. And it has such a weird name too.
Yeah, which the reason I call it an Absorbicron is because I think that's how they pronounce it in the Justice League series. I'm gonna have to get that box set out because I've got the entire Justice League animated series on DVD. I think they call it an Absorbicron in that. I don't know. Whatever.
That would make more sense to me if it was a cron.
Yeah. But I've also got the Batman Beyond complete series. God, I haven't watched those in a while. Sorry. It's making me want to go on a Bruce Timm kick. But yeah, okay. Is there anything else you want to say about all of this before we close out this episode and go into some spoilery stuff and all that?
I don't really think so. I mean, the whole flashback with Carol, it was a strange way to split the issue.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah,
for sure.
not too long, but yeah, let's talk about it because I know we did the first time. It's a weird way to kind of like suck the life out of the story. The whole second part, the second of the three-part novel, if you will, is basically almost all exclusively Hal's flashback to what happened on Earth, which is done for a reason, to ground him and to try to lessen the Yellow Ring's control over him and slow its the way it's corrupting him. But
it also serves to set Hal's. I mean, this is called the Silver Age,
right?
But it also serves to set, Hal's personal background and story, where he is in his own history as you read this.
It does. But it probably carries, besides the fact that even that's really goofy, a lot of the things that happen in that flashback. It's just the fact that it does kind of suck the life out of the main story, I think. I don't think it needed to be as long as it was.
Yeah, there had to have been a better way to do this, and frankly, a more interesting way. Like you could have referred to one of Hal's past encounters with Sinestro. Like, oh, hey, I saw him do this with his ring. I forgot he could do that. Let me use this power to take out the Justice League. Or, I mean, you could do anything else. I know that Star Sapphire appears maybe a little bit later than this is supposed to take place. I don't know specifically. But, I mean, of all of his Silver Age villains, Sonar, I mean, don't get me wrong. He's not that popular now. At the time, he was probably one of Green Lantern's more well-known villains, but I still question using him as the flashback.
Yeah, as we kidded, I guess the tattooed man was busy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then they already had Sinestro on deck, because he was Sinestro. Let's be honest. Hal's Rogues Gallery is pretty friggin' lame. Certainly back then. So I guess they didn't.
Well, I mean, I think he has one of the more extensive rogues galleries that people have done nothing with.
Oh yeah.
Because Batman always had like an extensive rogues gallery, and now we know all of these rogues, all of these various villains he has by name, and can list off, God, I don't know, 15 to 20 of them with no problem. But that's because when they started out, they were just as lame as any of these other villains that Green Lantern has. But after they were created, creators went on to use them and flesh them out and do cool things with them. And so on and so forth. Batman had better luck than Green Lantern did. I wonder what the Green Lantern landscape would look like if people took just as much time to develop the Tattooed Man, the Shark, Sonar, I don't know, the Man in the Iron Lung, stuff like that. What was the Invisible Destroyer?
Yes.
Things like that. So rather than just developing Star Sapphire, Sinestro, blah, 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 I feel like if someone had devoted enough time over the years to bringing back these characters rather than just focusing on one or two or trying to create new ones or, whatever. So it probably would have drastically changed things. I'd be curious to do that. See what that would entail. Which almost makes me wish they had done that with the Green Lantern Earth 1. I mean, Green Lantern Earth 1 was fantastic the way it is, but what would that have looked like if instead of going with the whole Manhunters thing, teasing the Krona and the yellow sort of power thing, if they instead were like, let's redo the Shark.
Yeah, I don't know.
But, all right, anything else about this you want to tackle before we go into spoilery territory?
No, I think we can roll into the spoilers.
Okay, so one spoiler, guys. Supposedly how Agamemnon gets defeated is he is imprisoned after he's beaten into the Central Power Battery. So, given that this is supposed to take place in the Silver Age, the Central Power Battery has been destroyed and rebuilt at least 3 times, I think, between the Silver Age and modern era, if not more.
At least, yeah.
Yeah. So what happened to Agamemnon is my first question. What do we think happened to him? So he's imprisoned in the Central Power Battery. As we know, the reason modern times, as we now know, the reason the yellow impurity existed in the first place is because Parallax is and has always been there. So, if he's imprisoned inside the Central Power Battery, when the yellow weaknesses is in effect, that means he's imprisoned in the Central Power Battery with Parallax. So, what happened to him? Did he escape when the Central Power Battery was destroyed? Was he absorbed by Parallax? What do we think happened to Agamemnon?
Well, like you said, pretty much the only two rational explanations would be that the only two rational explanations would have been that he got absorbed into Hal, or that he was freed when the power battery was destroyed. I would say he was freed. Obviously, they kind of tried to split hairs when they had the whole Dr. Light going into Kyle's battery, which never really made any sense anyway. Why that would be the case? Dr. Light should have the same thing. He was trapped in the Central Power Battery when it was destroyed too. So he also should have either been in Hal or freed. So I don't know. I'm going to assume he was freed because we certainly haven't seen anything of him since. So it would make perfect sense that that's the only real explanation.
Yeah. I would tend to agree with you only just because it gives us another thing to look forward to in case anybody ever wants to pick up on this breadcrumb, is because supposedly Agamemnon is the son of one of the first beings created after the Big Bang in the DC universe. So he's an old-ass being. And Green Lantern-wise, what character do we know recently that has something to do with the Big Bang in the DC universe? Relic. Now, when Kyle found Relic, he was inside sort of like a cosmic space-time cyst that supposedly we're led to believe has been there since the Big Bang, and Relic was never released prior to Kyle flying up and Relic inside the cyst, sensing him and busting out and so on and so forth. But it would be interesting to see Agamemnon maybe in relation to the Source Wall, maybe in relation to, Relic or something like that, I think. Because they did, at the end of DC Metal, that's exactly what's happening in this new Scott Snyder series I've been reading, Justice League No Justice. They broke the Source Wall at the end of DC Metal, and they're sort of dealing with some of the ramifications of that in this DC No Justice series. So if the Justice League broke the Source Wall, and one of the oldest beings in the universe is supposedly one of them, Agamemnon, it'd be really interesting to see him as a future ramification of, hey, that time y'all broke the Source Wall, it set me free or something.
That's true. Just like we've never dealt with the Titan that came through the Source Wall, did we? At the end of Godhead.
No.
And apparently
Nope.
we won't.
Nope.
You can't say that, but if we had to bet on things that are going to be wrapped up in the last few issues of the Vendetti run, that's probably like you're probably hovering at like 10 to 15% max that thing would even be touched upon. Considering a lot of the other big characters or big mysteries that probably won't be touched upon either. And like Relic himself, whether Relic is more likely to be dealt with at the end, considering they seem to be recruiting everybody under the sun, including people who they shouldn't be recruiting, to take on the Dark Stars because they're just so powerful or there's just too many of them. So
Sure.
Relic would still be a logical going back to point to try to recruit Relic. But you would have to convince Relic that they are using basically well, I guess you could appeal to Relic that even though they're not necessarily really pulling power from the emotional spectrum directly, they are leading leading the universe to its destruction somehow. I'm not sure how you'd convince him of that, but it'll be interesting. It'd be weird not to touch upon Relic at the end of that run, since that's the first thing we ever really saw in the Robert Venditti issue was Relic.
True.
So
All right. Well, is there anything else before I tell people where to find the rest of the parts of this JLMay crossover?
You tell them, Chad.
All right, guys. Again, in not this exact order, but pretty darn close. Silver Age, the one-shot, is being covered by Justice's First Dawn. Silver Age, Secret Files, is covered by the Fire and Water podcast. Silver Age, Challengers of the Unknown, is covered by the Shortbox Showcase podcast. The Silver Age Justice League of America one-shot is covered by the Coffee and Comics blog / podcast. The Silver Age Teen Titans is covered by the Supermates podcast over on the Fire and Water Network. The Dial H for Hero one-shot is covered by Frank over on the Idlehead of Diablo. The Doom Patrol one-shot is covered by Waiting for Doom. The Flash one-shot is covered by the Longbox Crusade. The Showcase, which comes right after this one, is being covered by Batgirl to Oracle. The Brave and the Bold is covered by Comic Reflections. And the 80-Page Giant is being covered by the Cosmic Treadmill podcast. So be sure to look those up on iTunes and download those JLMay crossovers, as well as you'll be able to find links to those shows over on the post for this episode on our website at LanternCast.com. And speaking of LanternCast.com, Mark, you want to tell people how they can reach us?
LanternCast.com? No. Besides LanternCast.com, which is our website, get our latest episodes. We have a nice, and there's going to be one posted, hopefully by the end of this week, Ring Cyclopedia. We do Ring Cyclopedia videos, which basically we do either rings or ring props, including power batteries, and talk about different Green Lantern rings and batteries and just anything that basically can fall into that genre that have been created. Some by more like individual private sellers, not official merchandisers. And, of course, official DC products and rings and things of that nature. So we cover all that. So those episodes are also on LanternCast.com. The email is lanterncast@gmail.com. That is the best place to contact us to give us feedback about this episode or our podcast in general. Facebook and Twitter. Use hashtag GLCast to locate us on either of those. iTunes and Stitcher, we're on both of those platforms, so please leave us a positive review, whichever platform, or both if you happen to listen to us on both, but if you just do one, which probably most people do, just leave us a positive review. We would greatly appreciate that. And last but not least, we have a very underused lately voicemail, 708 Lantern. So that's the best way to guarantee you're going to be on the show is give us a voicemail. I think there's a 2-minute time limit on it, but you can
3 minutes.
Is it 3? Is it 3?
Yeah.
So you can give us your thoughts on anything we've already done, stuff you want to hear, upcoming possible topics, things of that nature. So I think that's pretty much it.
All right, guys. Should we tell them about some stuff we have coming up?
Sure.
All right. So what's next episode going to be if they want to stick around and listen to this podcast if they haven't listened to us lately?
It would appear the next episode will be Hal and the Green Lantern Corps, probably, depending when we record it now. If there's going to be, I would say, at least the first 3 issues of the Dark Star arc. It's possible, depending when we recorded it, maybe we could do the first 4 issues, but probably we're going to stick to the first 3 since I think that was supposed to be the prelude anyway. I think that was supposed to be technically 3 issues based on the initial way it was divvied up. But either way, Hal and the Corps should be next. Then after that, not entirely sure. We might delve in. We probably will do the Jessica's Ring arc because it's not particularly long and it's over with now. In Green Lanterns, which will wrap up Tim Seeley's abridged run on Green Lanterns, and then after that, probably something else, probably more of a wild card because we do have a while before the whole Dark Star arc will end completely, so that gives us a little bit more room to. And we actually have a Green Lanterns annual coming out soon too.
We do. And Mark and I just discussed again, though. When I say this, guys, even for regular listeners of the show, There is no timeline on this, but we did just discuss covering Cosmic Odyssey at some point in the future. So if you guys are looking for our coverage of some, bigger Green Lantern-related story arcs, Cosmic Odyssey could be coming your way pretty soon. And if you guys are new listeners to the show, want to listen to something, Mark, you can recommend something else, but I know one thing I've been trying to pimp since it came out is I know a lot of people are big fans of the Earth 1 original graphic novels. And our episode covering that is a twofer, actually. Not only do Mark and I cover Green Lantern Earth 1, but we also interview the creative team on that same episode. So Gabriel Hardman and Karina Becco. So not only do you get the coverage of it, what we think of it, how it relates to, what they did, how they did it, but then you get to turn around and hear the creative team's reasoning behind why they did what they did and their inspiration, their likes, their passion. So that's a really good kind of encapsulation of kind of what we do here. We review. I love interviewing people. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff in there to listen to if you want to go listen to that episode. Mark, do you have any episodes you'd recommend to people if they're listening to us for the first time from this JLMay event?
Well, I would say besides the regular issue reviews, which obviously because we're the LanternCast, we do have to, no matter what our current vibes are at a given moment on the state of the Green Lantern universe, that we do have to cover the material, so there's no doubt that we do that. So that's a huge amount of what we do. I would also say, besides just LanternCast stuff, obviously Chad and I do a lot of movie stuff. So we tend to do a lot of, we always do a movie preview episode, which we did probably back in January, which is the stuff we're looking forward to in this year. We've had movie-centric episodes on the Infinity War and Black Panther this year so far.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, we did Cloverfield too. I almost forgot about that. So
Cloverfield Paradox. Yeah.
So which probably would have been a movie review, a released movie review, but since they put it on Netflix, I just made it a little sped that one up, and there'll be other movie reviews coming later this year. But I would say that's another thing we do besides just Green Lantern stuff. So we kind of branch out and do more pop culture stuff. So that's stuff that I think we both enjoy doing.
Yeah, and I think that sort of goes, for those of you who are familiar with the Fire and Water Podcast Network and the shows they're on, that's sort of their mantra, find your joy. That's kind of what Mark and I have been doing lately is when you see non-Lantern related stuff pop up in our feed, that's us just having fun and doing something that we're passionate and interested about so that you don't hear us every episode going, oh, we're not really liking the current titles and blah, blah, blah. That's why we don't review these comics as they come out, because there'd be too many episodes dedicated to them, and I feel like we might feel burned out. Now, obviously, the creative teams are supposedly changing relatively soon, so maybe that'll turn around. But I definitely would recommend listening to things that are interesting, like the Earth 1 review and interview, as well as the sort of spin-off stuff that we do that is not related to Lantern stuff, that is something we're like, all right, cool, we got those current arc reviews out of the way. Let's do something we're really, jazzed about. So you'll hear a lot of passion and stuff there. So definitely recommend checking all that out. So, anything else we should tell people about before we turn them loose and to go find the Batgirl to Oracle podcast?
I guess the only thing we could do, which would be somewhat self-serving, is even if we don't want to say what it is just to say we know next year's JLMay will make us particularly happy, will make Lantern fans particularly happy, and we'll be taking a relatively big role in leading the way next year. So that is something worth looking forward to.
That's right. After the credits, guys, stay tuned because I'm not going to tell you what it is, but I'll give you a bit of a hint as to what it is. A little audio snippet as to what it could be. And hopefully if hopefully if you recognize it, you automatically know what it'll be. But otherwise, let's just say next year when we cover it, it'll be the 10-year anniversary of that event. So, all right. We'll talk to you later, guys.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
darkness from the skies. The darkness grows as all light dies. We crave your hearts and your demise. By my black hand, the dead shall rise.